The Atari 400 Mini is an intriguing new system designed to play games from Atari's 8-bit line of computers, which includes the Atari 5200. And while you will be able to play your own games from a flash drive, I got to wondering what games would be included. And thanks to Atari Age and the Armchair Arcade, we now know all 25 games. So let's take a look and see if they're any good. Also stay tuned because I have some additional games that I'd like to see included on this system. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Airball is our first game, and it's a kind of weird one. You play as a bubble, well, I guess a person that's been turned into a bubble by a wizard, and your goal is to find this spell book and turn yourself back into a human, I think. You just have to be really careful not to puncture yourself and die. I really like the isometric view of the graphics. The controls I thought were a little bit strange. I think I was expecting to move the joystick diagonally, but it didn't work that way. Instead, you have to push up and down and left and right, and it always confused me how to actually move the bubble around. Asteroids is our next game, and of course it's a classic. This one's pretty cool because you can play with 3 other friends at the same time, if you have any, which of course I don't. And you can play either cooperatively, where you don't shoot each other, or you can play competitively, where you can shoot each other. This version of Asteroids, I don't know, it just feels kind of janky to me. Like your ship doesn't move correctly, and the photon torpedoes don't shoot straight. I mean, sometimes they go really, really crooked. Another thing that's kind of weird about this version of Asteroids is that there's no hyperspace. Instead, you have the shield, which really was just for Asteroids Deluxe. Next we have basketball, and it looks basically like the Atari 2600 version of basketball. Well, I mean, at least the way it plays. The graphics are a little bit better, of course, than the 2600 game. I keep wanting to go up and do a slam dunk like NBA Jam, but it just doesn't work that way. It's like, you can see my player going to shoot the ball, but he also jumps at the same time as he shoots. I either just want to do a jump shot or a layup. I can't quite figure that out. Here's Battlezone, which is of course the classic arcade game from Atari. They try to mimic the look of the vector graphics in this one, and I don't know how well it pulls it off. I mean, there's really no 3D at all in this game. It is kind of funny to me that Atari would be putting this one on their system because they don't even own Battlezone anymore, which is kind of a shame. I mean, come on guys, you've been buying all these companies up and all these games up. Could you at least buy back your own game? That would be great, thanks. And speaking of games that Atari has bought recently, here's one, Berserk. I find it interesting that Atari actually owns Stern in all their games now. I think this is a pretty decent arcade conversion, although man, I sure wish your player moved a little bit faster. He seems so slow. This one also has the voice, which the 2600 version did not have. Well, I mean the original 2600 version. That would have blown me away back in the day, because voice was not a thing, really. I mean, even the Intellivision had to have a voice module in order to do voice, but to be able to have voice in the game without a voice module, that was crazy back then. Next we have Boulder Dash. This is a pretty cool action game. You just have to be careful not to let the boulders fall on top of your head or slide sideways, which, you know, round boulders or not, I really don't think of it that way. I think of them as looking down on the playfield and not from the front. So it still makes no sense to me that the boulders would fall sideways. In any case, this is a super popular game from back in the day, and I'm a little surprised it's going to be on the 400 Mini, considering it's a First Star software game. I guess Atari has licensed it to be on the 400. Here's a game called Bristles, and I remember seeing this one in all the Atari magazines back in the day, and I never got to play it. I never figured out what the heck this game was even about. And basically, in this game, you are a painter who has to paint all the walls, and you have to go up the elevators. Sometimes, if you're not careful, the elevators will land on you, and you'll go bananas, which I find to be slightly annoying. But overall, I think this is a pretty good addition to the 400 Mini. Here's Bruce Lee, or as they're going to call it on the 400 Mini, Lee. I guess they can't use the name Bruce Lee because of copyrights and all that stuff. It'd probably be really, really expensive to get the Bruce Lee name. But basically, you play as the character Lee, who is a martial artist, and he can punch and kick and jump, and I guess you're supposed to collect these lantern things and move on to the next stage, something like that. I find this to be kind of an intriguing game, at the same time not really knowing what I'm supposed to do. Here's an awesome looking one called Capture the Flag. I mean, look at how cool the, I guess they're kind of 3D-ish graphics moving around in this maze. And I think the goal here is to, I don't know, capture the flag or something, I guess, and avoid getting caught by the opponent. In addition to the awesome graphics, the music is pretty good too. Although I just wish it was a little bit faster. Here's another classic arcade game, Centipede. Basically, you just shoot the centipede that's coming down from the top of the screen before it reaches the bottom, avoiding the spider and the fleas and the scorpions, and just, you know, just basically shoot everything. It's a pretty easy game. Well, to understand anyways. Playing the game can be a little bit more challenging, although for some reason I think I must have been playing on easy mode, because the centipede never broke up into multiple pieces at the beginning of the stage. He was always just one big long centipede. Now, I don't know if Atari is going to release a trackball controller. I mean, that would be incredibly awesome if they did. Well, hopefully it would anyways. I mean, they'd probably have to change a bit of the code to work with a true trackball. Or I guess they could just use the 5200 version. Here's another game that would benefit from having a trackball. That's Crystal Castles. And in the game, you just play as Atari's probably most well-known mascot character, Bentley Bear. I mean, he's appeared in at least one other official Atari game, Atari Karts for the Jaguar. And basically, you just have to travel around and collect all the gems, avoiding the monsters and the bees and the trees and the witches and the skeletons and stuff like that. This one has a lot of different stages, and I played it for quite a while. It is a little bit challenging to play with the joystick, I'll say that. But I ended up playing it for quite a bit longer than I thought I would. Here's kind of a cool racing game called Electra Glide. It's got some really cool and fast graphics, and some great music as well. The controls are a little bit slippery though in this one. And also I keep wondering, is there any other cars or anything, or am I just trying to avoid hitting these cubes and globes and stuff? Is that the whole point? Just avoid hitting stuff? This one was definitely impressive. Our next game is called Encounter, and this is another one that I have never heard of before. But as you can see, it is a fast and furious Battlezone style game where the colors are quite a bit brighter than Battlezone. I love how fast this game is, it's fantastic. Also, the explosions are great. And occasionally you'll get enemies that just charge you, so you have to be really careful there. And then I went into this black void. I guess I was supposed to avoid all these balls and stuff. I just decided to hit one and see what happened. Oh, I died. This game makes me kind of wonder, why did Atari include this and Battlezone? Here's another one that I really enjoyed, Flip and Flop, and of course this one takes inspiration from Q*bert. Basically you play as a kangaroo in one stage and a monkey in another, and you just have to step on the tiles there and change their color, all the while avoiding, I don't know, I guess that's the zookeeper or something? The only downside is that there's really no way to attack the enemy. Only thing you can do is hope they step on that square that freezes you. Also, playing as the monkey is reversed, because he seems to be like hanging from the bottom of the stage versus the kangaroo who's at the top of the stage. So it can get a little tricky, but still, this is a great game. Next is a platformer called Henry's House. This is one I have never heard of in my entire life, but it looks pretty cool. And it's pretty challenging too. I tried for quite a while before I got off of this first stage. And then when I got to the second stage, I couldn't believe how complicated it looked. Here we have Hover Bover from our buddy Jeff Minter, or is it Hover Bover or Hover Bover? I don't know how you pronounce this, but basically in the game you play as a kid who has stolen the neighbor's lawnmower, and you're cutting, I don't know if you're cutting your own lawn or the neighbor's lawn, or I'm not sure, but you're supposed to cut the grass. And you have a dog who will attack the guy who's trying to get his lawnmower back. Also, you don't want to run over the flower beds or you'll have another neighbor coming out after you. I swear I played this for the Atari ST, and that game is a little bit easier to control than the Atari 8-bit one, but still, this is a pretty good game. I liked it. Here's the classic game Mule, or is it M-U-L-E? I don't know how would you pronounce this? M-U-L-E. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I've never really played this game. It's more of a resource kind of strategy game thing. I've never really had the opportunity to play it, but from what I understand, it's a classic and pretty much everybody loves this game. It's going to take a little bit of time for me to get into it though, I think. Here's Millipede, and of course this one has taken Centipede to the crazy level. There's so many bugs and creatures in this game, it's just insane. But this is one I used to play endlessly on my Atari 800XL, and I even still have the cartridge and play it from time to time. The trick in the game is really to just try to get enough points so you can get another blaster. And because you can get an instant 800 points from shooting the DDTs, I usually go straight for those and just get my free points out of them. Next we have another classic Atari game, well, Atari 8-bit game, Miner 2049er, and I'm really not surprised that this game was as popular as it was because it is so much fun. It's very simple, but very, very enjoyable. Really, all you gotta do is walk across the platforms, and I think you're collecting the radioactivity of the platforms, and also avoid the radioactive creatures, and you can destroy them by collecting an object first. When they turn green, you can touch them and take them out. Definitely a great on the Atari 8. Yet another classic is Missile Command, and this one is a fantastic conversion of the arcade. Of course, you only have one missile base here. I guess if you had multiple buttons on the joystick, they would have included the other two bases, but just for simplicity's sake, you just get the one. This game is fairly easy, but it does get pretty crazy in the later stages, I'll say that. Here's one I've never heard of called O'Reilly's Mine, and I really like this game. It's kind of like Oil's Well in reverse. Basically, you wander around the dirt and try to avoid the water coming up the middle and avoid the enemies as well. But once you collect all the, I guess they're resources, I don't know, probably coal and gold and stuff like that, then you just head back to your base and move on to the next stage. You also have this dynamite which can block the enemies from reaching you, but it doesn't stop the water, unfortunately. You also have to be a little bit strategic because you don't want the water to get to the top near your house because you're not going to be able to get home with the water blocking you. And that did screw me in a couple of games here. It's like, now I can't get over there thanks to the water. Next we have Star Raiders 2, which was originally going to be The Last Starfighter. I guess Atari decided not to go with that because of licensing, maybe? I mean, this is like the original Atari back in the day. But this is a pretty cool game, pretty easy to play. You just shoot all the enemies, and then you travel to a different sector and shoot more enemies. Traveling to the different sectors is pretty cool. It's a lot easier than I thought it would be. You just kind of move your joystick where you want to go. You can see the vestiges of The Last Starfighter here with this base ship here at the end. The 7 Cities of Gold, and I guess this was an RPG game that was pretty popular back in the day, but I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here. Here's a game that I thought was kind of a lame addition called Wavy Navy, but the more I played it, the more I really started to like this game. Basically, it's a Space Invaders kind of rip-off game, but your ship travels up and down these waves, and you have to avoid some of the enemies, like these mines that are in the water, and sometimes you have to avoid the bombs that are coming after you. So it adds a little bit of a strategy element to where you need to position your blaster there. But yeah, Wavy Navy, this one, that was a blast. I liked it. Here's a fairly modern game called Yomp, or Yomp, or Stomp, or something. I don't know. Who knows how to pronounce this game? But it came out in 2007, and it's got some pretty interesting, like, tube-style graphics. Basically, you're just this ball, and you have to travel down this tube and not fall off the edges. Got some really fascinating graphics and some great music, and it's definitely got some challenge to it as well. Alright, those are the 25 official releases that are going to appear on the 400 Mini, but I want to talk about a few games that I would love to see included as well. First of all is Hardball, and I absolutely love this game back in the day. It's such a great baseball game. It did appear on an Atari XE cartridge, which is how I always played it. But now that Atari owns Accolade, I mean, there's really no reason why this game can't appear on the system. Next is Kangaroo, and I just have a soft spot for this game. The 5200 game is really good, but it's super hampered by the controls. And it sure would be great if Atari would include the game that would work with the Atari 2600 style controller. I mean, there's really no great home port of this game. The 2600 game is good, but the graphics are just so lacking, and the 5200 has terrible controls, so it would be great if they could, release the game on the 400 Mini. Next, I would like to see Montezuma's Revenge appear on the 400 Mini. This is a great action game that appeared pretty much on every system back in the day. And I don't know how Atari would license this game. I think they could do it because the programmer has gone on to create like the NES version of the game as well. So I'm sure Atari could strike a pretty easy deal. Next is kind of a weird game called Spare Change, and I remember seeing this one in the magazines back in the day. I think it was probably Antic Magazine, and I just thought how cool it was to, be able to be the manager of an arcade. Little did I know that this game is so much more complicated than that. Basically, you have to collect these tokens and put them in this bin so that the Zerk Show door will open so you can move on to the next stage. Well, the problem is these little Zerk guys will go around and grab your tokens and throw them in their piggy bank, and when they get 5 in their piggy bank, the game's over. So you spend half the time chasing these guys around trying to get the tokens back, or going after the tokens that are in the machines, and this is just a crazy game. What I do think is cool is that you can go over to the jukebox and set it off, and the Zerks will go over there and start dancing and keep them busy for a while. And I understand later that you have like a popcorn machine, and I think the telephone booth, you can do something with that as well. But I don't know, this game just fascinated me back in the day, and I really wanted to play it. Yeah, I just think it would be cool to include this one. Another game that I think should be included is Eastern Front 1941. Now, I'll be honest, I've never really played this game. I just know that it is an iconic game for the Atari 8-bit system, and I think it really should be included. And then one bonus game from my original 5 is Star Raiders. And I think I understand why it was not included, and it's because you really need the keyboard in order to play it. And of course, the 400 Mini does not have a working keyboard, so you'd have to, use a USB keyboard. Star Raiders is such an incredible game. I mean, it really was a system seller. But for me, I never had played it until a friend of mine from school gave me some of his old Atari games, and Star Raiders was one of them. And boy, did I feel like I missed out on something amazing, because Star Raiders is one of the most incredible games I have ever played in my entire life. I mean, it's kind of like the original Star Trek mainframe game, except from a first-person perspective. And you have to travel from sector to sector and destroy the enemy aliens and stuff. But it's in that 3D view, and it's just, oh man, I don't know, it's just such a perfect game. I love this game so much. It's a shame that it's not going to be included on the 400 Mini. Alright, well there you have it, all 25 games that are going to appear on the Atari 400 mini computer, and a couple of games that, I personally would love to see on it. So what do you think of the game selection? Did they choose a good mix of games for this one? Let me know down in the comments. With all that said, I thank you for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye everyone.